My millionaire man told me that when he first saw me, it was love at first sight. He told me that a couple months into dating, but he recalled that when he saw me turn the corner outside the speakeasy, he said it was like I was gliding down the sidewalk in my red bottoms. He said I looked beautiful, elegant, confident, and had this self-assured energy about me. And it wasn't just how I looked, but it was the energy. And the more I sat with this compliment, the more that I realized that this kind of energy is all about self-perception. I feel like self-confidence is one of the most important things that women can cultivate because it literally affects everything. It affects how you move, what you tolerate, what you attract. And that energy didn't start with him. It started with how I talk to myself. I feel like I kind of developed that in my early 20s. I remember freshman year of my undergrad, I was in my hippie era. I would lay in the grass and just watch the clouds roll by. I spent so much time alone. And I had this realization one day that I am literally the only person I will be with 24/7 for the rest of my life. So I can either learn to love that or suffer through it. And I decided that I was going to cultivate a beautiful relationship with myself. But don't get me wrong, because there was also a period in my life where I lost that version of myself. I was in a relationship that slowly altered how I see myself. It was like I let someone take the wheel of my life. And what's wild is, in order for that relationship to function, I had to shrink. And I started noticing that my self-confidence was fading, my voice was softening, my instincts were quieting. And I'll take accountability for this because I allowed it. I allowed someone else's perception of me to override my own. And once I realized that someone who truly loves you doesn't distort your reality, I chose myself. And if I had been more grounded in myself, I probably would have walked away sooner. But I don't regret it because sometimes you have to lose yourself in order to understand how important it is to choose yourself every time after that. And I feel like I went through hell in that relationship so that I could experience heaven in my current relationship. Any relationship that requires you to shrink isn't love. And if a relationship only works when you abandon yourself, it was never aligned. But I became my own best friend. I don't mind time spent alone. In fact, I really enjoy it. I love going to Pilates, I love spa days, I love solo dates. I genuinely enjoy the person I am. And that shows up in everything. When I lost 30 pounds, it wasn't punishment. I didn't say, we have to hit our 15K steps today because we hate ourselves. I said, this is the goal and this is how we get there. And I love myself enough to follow through. When I do little things like when I clean the kitchen, it's because I deserve clean dishes and I deserve a clean space. When I get up, get ready, and put myself together, it's because I deserve to indulge in the things that make me feel happy and beautiful. It's always coming from a place of deserving. And that's why I walked away from so many men. That's why I went on so many first dates. And I left easily because I loved myself enough to know when something was not aligned with my life. It wasn't ego, it was self-respect. And here's something that not many people talk about. When you show up as your most confident, embodied, self-loving version, you become easier to recognize. I've heard people talk about how to be someone's dream girl or, make sure you're his dream girl, which, definitely I agree with those. But I feel like the root of the topic that they're trying to get at is that it's not about trying to be someone's dream girl. It's about being fully expressed. And if you walk into a date feeling unsure or shrinking or questioning yourself, he might think you're pretty, but if you walk in grounded, self-assured, and glowing from within, that energy is unmistakable. That's when he thinks, wait, that's her. That's the woman that I've been looking for. And when my man first saw me, he didn't just see how I looked. He felt how I carried myself and that certainty, that presence, that energy. It just makes it easier for people to recognize you. And I feel like here's the other shift. When you already believe that you're beautiful, when you already believe that you're special, a compliment doesn't create your identity. It confirms it. When I was dating and men would tell me I was gorgeous or I was different or special, I didn't cling to it because I already knew it. And it felt nice, but it wasn't necessary. There's a big difference between going on a date hoping that someone tells you you're worthy versus going on a date knowing that you are worthy and deciding whether this person will add to your life. When you don't need validation, you stop searching for reassurance. You start dating for alignment. And don't get me wrong, I love a compliment, but it's just that I don't depend on them. I don't need them. And that confidence shows up in everything, even the way I walk. And when you genuinely like who you are, it radiates. The world treats you differently when you treat yourself well. And men can feel that. And that's what he fell in love with. And this might be controversial to say, but if you don't like something about yourself, change it. And what you can't change, learn to love it or use it. For example, I grew up going to a predominantly white school. I didn't look like most of the girls there. And for a while, that can mess with your head if you allow it. But when I went to college and when I started living in different cities, when I started traveling, I realized that I'm different in a rare way. And when people started calling me exotic looking, I said, okay, cool, I'll lean into it. You don't fight what makes you different. You refine it, you amplify it, you own it. And if someone doesn't find me attractive, that's fine. I'm not for everyone, and I know that. But you don't need permission from anyone to feel like you are beautiful. The only standard that matters is the one that you set for yourself. And if someone gets upset seeing you confident, happy, thriving, that says more about the limits of their imagination than the limits of your beauty. I've had people ask me where my confidence comes from and how they can cultivate confidence. Everything in life is conditioning. If you can be conditioned to doubt yourself, you can condition yourself to believe in yourself. And that's why I say in some of my videos, like, brainwash yourself. Brainwash yourself intentionally. Repetition, affirmations, identity statements. I realized that I really enjoy Pilates and Legree, both for the workout, but also because there's mirrors everywhere. I love looking at myself, not in a narcissistic way, but in a proud way. I see the muscles that I've built. I see the discipline. I see the glow. And even when my body is shaking and the instructor is like, 30 more seconds, I never say, I can't. You know, I look in the mirror, I say, I am strong, I can do this. I finish what I start and I look good doing it. And eventually that stopped being something that I was trying to believe, and it just became part of who I am. You don't become confident and then act like it. You act like it until it becomes natural. My man once said something and it really stuck with me. He said, a lot of successful people don't even fully realize all the things that they're doing to make them successful. And I feel like self-love works that way. It's not just one big moment. It's all the thoughts that you repeat daily. The way you talk to yourself in the mirror, the way you push for 30 more seconds, the way you refuse to insult yourself, the way you walk into a room. Confidence isn't arrogance, it's repetition. And if you don't love yourself, start practicing. You are the one person you are with for your life. So it's up to you to make sure that's a good relationship. If you can be brainwashed into insecurity, then you can brainwash yourself into power.